Welcome to Epic Tales Universe, where the past breathes through stories carved in stone, whispered through clay tablets, and echoed in the silence of forgotten temples. If you find wonder in ancient truths and sacred voices, please subscribe, like, and share. Every gesture helps us revive the memory of those who once shaped the human soul. Long ago, before empires bore names known to the modern world, before pyramids or prophets, there was a land between rivers, a cradle of early civilization where the first cities rose and time began to take form. This land, known as Sumer, was home to the first written words, to sacred temples, to kings who walked with gods. Among the divine powers of this ancient world, one name once commanded the sky, a name that ruled not only the heavens but the very destiny of mankind. Enlil. He was the lord of the air, the master of storms, the bringer of kingship. Enlil was not only a god, he was the authority above all others, seated at the heart of divine order. From his temple in Nippur, the Ekur, the mountain house, he held the sacred tablets of destiny. He decided the fate of all beings, gods, mortals, animals, and stars. He was not born from silence. He emerged from a cosmos of primordial forces. The earliest gods, and the sky, and Ki, the earth, bore him as a force of movement, of breath, of command. Enlil was not merely the wind. He was the breath between heaven and earth, the divider of sky and soil. When he stepped between his parents, he separated the heavens from the earth. He made space for life. He was the force that cleared the way for the world to take shape. With this division, the world was formed. The heavens rose, the earth settled, the seas stretched, and Enlil stood between them all, speaking the words that became law, giving meaning to stars and shadows alike. From his sanctuary in Nippur, he did not simply observe. He governed. He issued decrees, spoke destinies, and bestowed power upon those he deemed worthy. Kings traveled to his temple to receive his blessing. Without Enlil's consent, no ruler held legitimacy. Without his breath, no civilization could stand. He was not warm. He was not kind. He was vast. He was law. He was storm. And like all great forces, Enlil was not free from conflict. Among the tales carved into tablets and echoed through priests' voices, there were murmurs of tension, of clashes between the gods, of cosmic balance tipping under the weight of divine desire. Enlil shaped the world but also brought hardship. For when the lesser gods, the Anunnaki, grew weary of digging the rivers, shaping the land, and sustaining the order, they rebelled. They cast down their tools, they raised their voices, and the heavens trembled. It was Enlil who heard. It was Enlil who responded. To solve the divine labor crisis, Enlil and his siblings shaped humanity from clay and divine blood. Humans were born not in innocence, but in service. Born to irrigate, to plow, to offer. Born to fill the temples with incense and the fields with grain. And so humanity grew and cities blossomed. Temples gleamed with offerings. Songs rose to the heavens. The gods were pleased. For a time. But mortals, in their growing numbers, grew loud. Their prayers were constant. Their rituals unending. Their cries reached the heavens and disturbed the divine rest. And Enlil, the god of order, found the noise unbearable. He sent plagues. He sent drought. He sent famine. Each time, the mortals cried louder, prayed harder, multiplied again, until, at last, he decided to silence them. The flood, the great deluge that cleansed the world, sent by Enlil to erase humanity. But the divine family was not united. Another god, Enki, the god of wisdom and water, felt pity for the mortals. In secret, he whispered to a man named Ziusudra or Utnapishtim or Atrahasis, depending on the city and the tongue. He told him to build a boat to save life, to carry the animals and the people across the rising tides. When the flood came, it covered mountains. It drowned temples. It swept away kings and beggars alike. And when the waters finally receded, the world was changed. Life began anew, and Enlil, seeing the survivors, felt a shift within himself. He relented. He allowed the survivors to live, to spread again. He accepted their place in the world, but imposed new limits. Shorter lives, fewer children, a balance between silence and devotion. The story of the flood, passed down through clay tablets, found echoes in later stories, in Babylon, in Canaan, in the Torah, in the Quran. Though names changed, the memory of a God who sent the waters remained. And Enlil's name, though often hidden, was there in the foundations. But time is a tide of its own. As centuries passed, Cities rose beyond Sumer. Akkad took power, then Ur, then Babylon. With new kings came new gods and new divine hierarchies. In Babylon, it was Marduk, the warrior god, who rose to dominance. His myth spoke of him slaying chaos itself, claiming the tablets of destiny, building the heavens from the body of a primordial serpent. Tale of victory, of replacement. Marduk's priests rewrote the tablets. They placed their god at the center. The temples of Enlil remained, but the prayers shifted. The power moved. The Lord of Wind became a memory, then a name, then a question. His temple in Nippur, once the heart of the world, stood quiet. The incense thinned. The voices faded. The scribes stopped copying his hymns. His name no longer commanded fear or devotion. And slowly, he slipped into the silence that even gods cannot escape. But fragments endure. Clay tablets buried beneath desert cities still bear his name. Hymns once sung in moonlit courtyards have been recovered. The legends, distorted by time, still pulse with the breath of Enlil's storm. He was never defeated. He was forgotten. And perhaps that is the greater fate. For what becomes of a god when no one speaks his name? When no fires are lit in his honor? When the very city that sang his praises is now rubble beneath farmers' feet? Do gods die? Or do they wait? In the quiet winds over ruined ziggurats, perhaps his breath still moves. In the stories that echo through cultures separated by oceans and centuries, perhaps he whispers still. His flood lives in other tongues. His storm walks through other skies. And now, as we speak of him again, even in this distant age, something ancient stirs. We remember Enlil, not with fear, not with worship, but with wonder. With respect for a time when mortals believed the wind could think, when the sky could judge, when every flood was divine. We remember a time when breath was sacred, when speech was destiny, when gods shaped clay into souls. And we remember that even forgotten gods once shaped the course of history. Thank you for walking this path with us in Epic Tales Universe. If the voice of Enlil moved you, if the silence he left behind made you wonder, please like this video, share it with those who love ancient stories, and subscribe to join us for more. The past is never truly gone. It waits for the right breath, the right word, to rise again.